Thank you, Frank. All right, I know what you're all thinking. It's getting on in the afternoon, and there's an investment banker on the stage. WTF? And it's true, it is seemingly contrarian. People don't usually put investment bankers and environmental advocates, in an overlapping Venn diagram. But perhaps at the end, we'll maybe find ways to align. Let's see, we titled this Digital Advertising Sustainability Objectives in Perspectives. And specifically, it's this perspective of an investment banker. Now, investment bankers tend to be pragmatic people. We have to be. It's in our interest and our clients' interest to be sort of pragmatic. And while I want to see a greener planet and less waste, I also want to see the green initiatives that have been discussed today actually make traction in the marketplace. We heard from some of these panels about some of the challenges of getting these initiatives adopted. And that goes double for an environment that's focused on costs and/or a political environment that we now find ourselves in. So given that it's an uphill battle, these are just some perspectives to help you think about maybe how to position it to get better results. And ultimately, better results is what bankers try to go for. Or maybe it's the parody videos. I write a bunch of these crazy parody videos about the industry, and I actually wrote one called Advancing Green, and it's sung to ABBA's Dancing Queen. And well, you know what, I'll spare you that today, but maybe we'll find a way to get the link to you so you can enjoy. I have a simple message, and that is to sort of maybe align the objectives of the green initiatives with a message that will perhaps get higher adoption. And to bring this sort of Wall Street perspective, I'm going to borrow the persona of a notorious fictional Wall Streeter. Yep. I'm pretty sure no one had Gordon Gekko on their bingo cards for environmental advocate, but let's see how we can do this. With a little help from AI, please enjoy a revised version of his famous speech.
Green is good. Green is right. Green works. Green clarifies, cuts through, and captures the efficiency of the digital supply chain. Green in all of its forms. Green for planet or profits has marked the upward surge of advertising. And green, you mark my words, will not only save sustainability, but that other malfunctioning ecosystem called the open web.
So, okay, Teldar paper it is not, but I think, again, aligning these initiatives is the core message. Clearly, there is a problem, right? If you look at how digital advertising is contributing to the global emissions, the stats look, troubling. There's a substantial portion. And when you we tried to find some esoteric data to help, put it in context. Every million ad impressions is one round-trip transatlantic flight. And when you consider the billions and billions of ad impressions a day, it amounts to like millions and millions of round-trip trips. And you all know that. I'm preaching to the converted with respect to the problem. I want to focus more on the messaging and the solution and how it might align for a broader message to a broader audience. There's lots of companies. I'm very encouraged, and this is not comprehensive, but we just spelled out a few of them. A lot of companies that are mission-driven to reduce digital ad emissions, and that's fantastic. With a variety of approaches to the market, whether it's measurement or actual reduction of waste in the bid stream. But I think that is all great, but as we heard, it's sometimes challenging to get some of these capabilities adopted, because I would submit that the green movement at times has a messaging problem. It is seen as adverse to the business interests of growth and profits. And so and that may well be in terms of some areas of environmental impact, but I'm here to say in digital advertising, it is largely, these two goals are aligned. And maybe we should adopt some of that broader messaging in order to get the buy-in and achieve the green initiatives. Because according to eMarketer, less than 2% of all marketing budgets are spent on sustainability initiatives. But if I were to poll marketers of how many of them want to reduce costs and enhance their profits, I'm pretty sure you're going to add 2 zeros to that. 100% of everybody wants to do that. So how do we couch this? Well, I think a real problem of this ecosystem is the fragmented supply chain. Normally, when you have an industry, it'll go through an arc of new company formation. It'll reach its apex, and then it'll have rationalization and consolidation, where companies merge, they fail, they go out of business, but you end up with a half a dozen to a dozen, depending on the industry, players that end up being the ones sort of intermediating that particular sector. Well, normally, that is denoted in dozens or maybe hundreds of companies that then mature into a smaller number. In digital advertising, it's thousands. It's like it's on steroids, all of these companies. And yes, there's been some consolidation, but we are still way under consolidated because there are still hundreds, if not, thousands, still in play, and that creates some problems. And some of the problems it creates is what I describe as dark corners. There are places for bad actors to do either outright nefarious things like fraud, or even just milder offenses, which don't help the industry in the long run. And you've heard all the terms of how this works, but because of the fragmentation, because of all of those interconnections of data and software and media across this vast ecosystem, even just the targeting and the measurement, the good things that people undertake, creates this sort of wasteful environment. And I describe many of these things under the term shenanigans. Again, they vary from outright fraud, illegal things, to just things that are smarmy. And at the end of the day, we have this bloated supply chain, too many companies, and too many sort of bad things going on in that bid stream, which is largely the engine for all of this waste. And we have been encouraged over the course of the last couple of years. There has been a growing chorus of voices, important, influential voices, who have brought these issues, very uncomfortable at times, right, when you're talking to the industry about their bad actions, to bear. And we're grateful for that, including our next speaker, Brian O'Kelly. And I know he concurs with the narrative that I'm describing. So 3 developments that impact this effort and inform the value proposition. 1 is an emphasis on outcomes and performance. 2 is the proliferation of AI. And 3rd is the ESG zeitgeist that we just heard about. So as it relates to outcomes and performance, advertisers have always said they wanted performance, but now we're actually increasingly seeing a lot more traction in that regard. And you can see it in terms of how some intermediaries in the sector go to market. They're focusing not on measuring the amount of waste or verifying what ads were appropriately slotted after the fact, but they're actually moving their products and delivering their services on the pre-bid side, to hopefully stop instead of measuring and saying you wasted these amounts of impressions or these were bad positioning, instead change it from the outset so you actually never have the bad ones in the first instance, thereby cutting down on what is invariably a wasteful sort of bid stream. Another initiative here that in this regard is something we call horizontal strategies. SSPs merging with DSPs. And by the way, it doesn't just have to be M&A. Some of these are organic initiatives. But essentially, it's companies in the middle that are consolidating their capabilities so that there are less hops. And the results are it improves supply path optimization. There are better outcomes for principals, better ROI or ROAS for advertisers, and better yield for publishers, greater intermediary margins, and enhanced data husbandry, which at a time of sensitivity on privacy matters a lot. And at the end of the day, reduced waste. So again, these horizontal initiatives, I think, are helpful. I would describe, again, this ecosystem as needing consolidation. This isn't a complete Lumascape, obviously. I have described, in fact, advertising technology as the Peter Pan of industries. It refuses to grow up. We still have all of these companies. And ultimately, if it's like those other industries that went through those phases, we will too, and end up with an end-state ecosystem, which I think will be a lot healthier, where the end game is we have fewer players doing higher volumes with lower take rates and with better quality. And that would reflect how most other industries have gone through that consolidation sort of migration. So wait, an investment banker who does M&A is standing here saying the proposition that M&A reduces waste and M&A is good for the planet? I don't know. But I will say this, less hops, less players, less dark corners, yes, probably does have that ultimate effect. And look, we just came through 2 years of a very dry spell in activity, and just in the last year, over $20 billion worth of transactions. So hopefully that is going to help clean up the ecosystem and drive better results. And so think about each of these digital advertising issues that reduce emissions, whether it's SPO, AI decisioning, MFA elimination, audience curation, creative tech. We're seeing great stuff there, and even M&A consolidation. Each of these, yes, has a financial outcome, and in every single case, it also has a coincidental carbon reduction outcome as well. So these things are very much aligned. They are not at odds. So yeah, enhancing profits, reducing emissions. The answer is yes. Let's pursue it. Second is the proliferation of AI. And anytime there's a shiny new object in marketing, there's a lot of hype, and you get startups being announced and crazy valuations and funding announcements and lots of media coverage. We've clearly been there. But in this instance, unlike some other false trends, AI is real, and we're going to see it really fundamentally transform this industry. And you're going to start to see the evidence. You're already seeing it in terms of in-market use cases, starting with the biggest companies because they had the budgets to invest early on, but you're going to start to see this proliferate to smaller companies and eventually most of the ecosystem. Where they demonstrate performance, you're going to get a lot of value creation, and ultimately, you'll see exits. In fact, AI, you could argue, was perfectly suited for digital advertising because of the three attributes, right? There's a large amount of spend, almost $1 trillion. You've got a massive data pools, and if there's anything that fuels the efficacy of an LLM, it's data. And you've got a massive spectrum of outcome, either the intended recipient, converted or became a customer, or they didn't. And so we developed this AI sort of hierarchy of AI applications to ad tech. So at the bottom layer, at the very base layer, we're thinking Maslow here now, we got workflow, media buying, and audience data. And essentially, AI there is software that optimizes the existing tasks that companies activate today to improve the efficiency of those media buys. And again, that will flow directly through to reducing waste and therefore assisting green initiatives. Second order is on the content and creative side, where Gen AI is going to turn what is effectively a manual process into an automated process. It's going to bring a lot of operating leverage to it, and as a result, improve both efficiency and the efficacy of that component. The third one, and this is where things start to get a little fuzzy, is we could see a fundamental rejigger of internet navigation. I mean, why do you need to publish to a website if you can publish directly to an LLM and consumers, on the other hand, are discovering content not by navigating to the World Wide Web, but rather looking for answers from their LLM. And there's lots of questions in there about what happens to brands and what business model. I'm quite confident, by the way, that whilst all the LLMs have started with subscription models, they eventually will all have an ad-supported model, because you just can't get there from here. Silicon Valley loves to hate advertising right up until the moment they don't. And then finally, to put it in the parlance of Donald Rumsfeld, unknown unknowns. This is such powerful technology, we don't even know what might be around the corner that we can invent to do that we don't already know. And this is taking the software and applying it manually yourself. Imagine if the software could do it on their own, and that's the agentic world that has the potential to be not just a incremental game changer in terms of software, but a fundamental rejigger of the entire space. And it's this kind of powerful software that's going to be a sort of like a rocket booster to the efforts to do media optimization, which ultimately is the biggest driver of reduced waste for green. And yes, it's a bit of a double-edged sword initially, in the sense that you've got all this, you've read about the server capacity. I think we get beyond that. We're already seeing the models get far more efficient, and I think ultimately we end up with much, much more increased effectiveness, better performance, and yes, reduced waste. So I think AI supercharges the efforts that are already underway. And then finally, ESG zeitgeist. You look at surveys, people find it confusing in terms of it's hard to define what the initiatives are. Increasingly, with the political climate we're in, there's sort of less adoption of some of these initiatives. And to that I say, well, I tell you what, if you can't necessarily count on people doing the right thing for the right reasons, fine, let them do it for other reasons, so long as we get to the end goal of reducing emissions. Mr. Begley earlier said he did initiatives reaching across the aisle with Republicans. Great, let's get as many people on board with this initiative as possible, and I think you can always count on procurement and people looking to cut costs and save money. So my message is simple: broaden the perspective of the pitch to focus on the supply chain, solve inefficiencies that drives profits and reduces emissions both at the same time. Embrace AI, because that's going to be a supercharger of this. And who knows, maybe do some M&A, because that'll help as well. So in the words and the spirit of Gordon Gekko,
green is good.
Green is good. Thank you very much.